Good afternoon and welcome to the 28th Annual Vanier College Symposium on the Holocaust and Genocide. I'm Marlene Grossman. I've been your host all week. I'm a psychology teacher at the college, and I also coordinate the symposium. So for more than 2 decades, Vanier College, in conjunction with the Holocaust Education and Genocide Prevention Foundation, has been the only college in Quebec to sponsor a week-long event dedicated to educating students about the Holocaust. Each year, we plan a comprehensive calendar of activities involving guest speakers, lectures, films, survivor testimony, and student participation. Ben Bicher is our last speaker for this year. Ben was a Jewish child survivor hidden in a Catholic orphanage in Belgium during the Holocaust. He survived from the age of 3 through 6 in hiding. Miraculously, his immediate family survived as well, and they immigrated to Montreal shortly after the war. So Ben, if you can start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Ben Bicher. Yes, I was born in Brussels, Belgium in 1938. So I am 82 years old. I am a child survivor. I was not deported. I was a hidden child. The war began in 1939. And as you know, and Belgium was overrun by the German army in May of 1940. So I'll give you a little background. At the time, there were approximately 52,000 Jews in Belgium. In October of 1940, Jews had to register in a what was called a Juden registry. And thereafter, they had to wear a yellow star with a J written on it. And this star had to be sewn on outer clothing so that it could be visible at any time. Eventually, Jews were arrested and sent to a concentration camp in Malines, Belgium. When they picked up and arrested 1,000 people, they would be put on a train to Auschwitz. The first train that had 996 people on it, 140 were children under 16. When the train would arrive in Auschwitz, children and old people were immediately sent to gas chambers because they were either too young or too old to work, and the Germans did not want to waste food on them. When the arrests started, my father, who owned another property in Brussels, which he rented to a truck driver and his wife, my father, my mother, my sister, we all went and hid in the attic of this house. We were there for several months. When it wasn't safe anymore, an acquaintance of my father took me by train to an orphanage in the town of Mel, which is about 50 kilometers from Brussels. And I remember that I was told that I had to call this man Papa on the journey to the camp. I didn't know what was happening. I was confused. Why did I have to leave my family? What was I supposed to do in this place? I was a 4-year-old little boy. My mother, my sister were hidden in a convent. My father was on the run, trying to stay one step ahead of the Germans. He was on a train in France with his brother-in-law when he had to go to the washroom, which was at the end of the car. On his return, he saw that the Gestapo was arresting his brother-in-law. So he turned around, went to the other car, and got off at the first stop thereafter. In the camp, I don't remember very much because I was 4, 5, 6 years old. I didn't see my parents for almost 3 years, but I knew that one day they would come to get me. Patience, patience. Sorry. 1.5 million children in Europe were murdered during the Second World War. 1.5 million. To put it in perspective, that is 250 times the population of Vanier, or Montreal proper has a population of 1.6 million. Only 6 to 11% of Europe's pre-war children survived. Every year there is what is called the March of the Living for senior high school students from all over the world. 10,000 to 12,000 Jewish grade 11 students go to Poland and Israel for 1 year. In Poland, they learn about the history of the Jews before the Second World War and after the Second World War. They learn of the horrors of the Holocaust by visiting the death camps. They visit towns and museums. They stay there for a week, and in Israel for a week, where they learn about life in Israel, and they learn of the accomplishments of Israel. Israel has approximately the same population as Quebec, roughly 8.5 million people. However, Quebec is 73 times larger than Israel. They learn about the inventions in technology Israel, which is the fifth largest, according to the Bloomberg organization. They invented things like Waze and Mobileye and drip irrigation, which revolutionized the agriculture industry, etc. I've been on 3 of these marches, and it is quite remarkable to see them marching 10,000 from each and every country, marching from Auschwitz to Birkenau. It is quite a sight. I digress a little. I don't remember too much about my stay in the camp, in the orphanage. I cried a lot. I couldn't tell anyone that I had family. And eventually, my mother came to get me, and I only remember she and I holding each other and crying with joy. Today, because I suffer from COPD, which is a chronic pulmonary disease, I have to stay home. And during this epidemic, I can't visit anyone, nor can I go to anybody's house. I haven't hugged my kids or my grandchildren since months and months. But this too will pass. Patience. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for that presentation, Ben. Thank you very much for telling your story. I have a couple of questions. So my first question really is, how do you think the Holocaust influenced your faith? Do you think it made you was it more negatively impacted your faith, or do you think it positively impacted you?
Negatively, I have problem with religion.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
My second question was, in terms of your survival, did that, so you said it affected your faith, but did it also affect how you perceived your life? Did it make you more pessimistic, or do you think it made you a more optimistic person?
A little of both. Okay. But, I am so thankful that I have my wife, I have 3 wonderful married children, 8 grandchildren. So now I can't complain. And, I couldn't talk about the past. It took many, many years before I was able to talk about my childhood and what happened. There was an international meeting of hidden children in Montreal, and my children found out about it, got tickets, and asked me if I would join them and attend. which I did, and that started me to be able to speak more freely.
Mhm. A couple more questions. So,
Sure.
were the people running the orphanage kind to you, or did they treat you differently than the non-Jewish orphans?
Um, I didn't know who was Jewish and who was not Jewish, so they did not treat me differently. I don't know who knew besides the Mother Superior if anyone else knew that I was Jewish.
Right.
So there was no difference that I could remember.
Okay. Thank you. Did you go to a refugee camp after the war? When were you able to start going to school?
No, as I said, my mother came to get me in 1945 directly to the orphanage because she knew where I was. And we went, this was in Belgium, in Brussels. And we stayed there. I went to school immediately that fall. And we stayed there until 1948 when we came to Canada. As a matter of fact, I only spoke French. I didn't speak a word of English. We came here in summer of 1948, and I had a cousin who was older than I, who lived and was born in Montreal. So he took me to register me in school, um, a French school, of course, and they wouldn't take me because I'm not Catholic. And they sent me to the Protestant school board at that time, and eventually learned English, and that was it.
Okay. Thank you. What lessons do you want your grandchildren to keep from your experience? Have you talked with them about what you went through?
Uh, I I have a couple of them because I have 8 grandchildren. So okay, a couple of them were on the march themselves, so they heard my story there because that's one of the things that you do when you go on the march as a survivor. And the older ones I have spoken to about my experience, which is more answering their questions rather than anything else. And the younger ones I have not spoken to.
Right. Okay. Where did your parents spend the war after they placed you in the orphanage? And did your father survive?
Yes, thankfully, we all survived. Um, my mother and my sister were in a convent, hidden in a convent, and my father was on the run and he did survive.
Okay. Um, okay, and the other question I think we answered. So she wanted to know if your mother always knew which orphanage you were in. And she wrote, as a mother, I can only imagine what it must have felt like when she was reunited with you.
Yes, it, uh, as a matter, it brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it.
Yeah. As a mother myself, I
Yeah,
can't even imagine. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so on that note, I would like to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And I think it's very fitting that we end this year's symposium with a survivor testimony. So for all of those of you who've been watching the symposium all week, I want to thank you to all of the attendees, to the panelists for watching all week. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Obviously means a lot to us. If you want to watch any of the videos from this week, next week they will slowly be uploaded. We've provided you the link in the chat box so you can watch all of the presentations from this week, as well as a special day that we had last Friday devoted to racism. So both of those are available on the Vanier television page. You are welcome to it. Okay, so thank you again, Ben. Keep well. Thank you to all the attendees, and I hope to see everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.